14 people were killed in the capital of Afghanistan today in an attack at a hotel. This comes as the United States is in the process of once again stepping up its commitment to helping Afghans improve security. PJ Tobia begins our coverage.
Smoke billowed overhead in Kabul. The burned-out shell of a car smoldered below.
Suddenly, the explosion took place here. I saw a couple of dead bodies of my friends.
ISIS, a relatively new combatant on the Afghan battlefield, claimed responsibility for the bombing. In the last month alone, the Taliban and ISIS have struck a TV station, Shiite mosques, and an army training facility. All of this 16 years after U.S. troops first arrived. Most U.S. and NATO troops departed in 2014 and left behind an Afghan army that suffered huge casualties from fierce Taliban attacks. The government holds little more than half of the country. The rest is in the grip of the Taliban or contested by the insurgents. In August, President Trump announced a new strategy, sending several thousand U.S. troops back to help train Afghan soldiers and fight the Taliban. But with a caveat.
Our commitment is not unlimited, and our support is not a blank check.
As part of the plan, hundreds of U.S. Marines have returned to Helmand province, a hotbed of Taliban activity. Mr. Trump is the third successive U.S. president to press Pakistan to stop harboring Taliban fighters, and he's appealed to Pakistan's traditional enemy, India, for more help. Secretary of State Rex Tillerson drove home that point on a visit to India last month.
The United States will continue to stand shoulder to shoulder with India. Terrorist safe havens will not be tolerated.
But it comes at a cost. In July, a UN report found civilian deaths in Afghanistan had reached a record high due to militant bombings and increased U.S. and Afghan airstrikes. Today's bombing in Kabul targeted supporters of a political party aligned with Afghan Chief Executive Abdullah Abdullah. He shares power with President Ashraf Ghani, an uneasy alliance formed after a close 2014 election plagued by accusations of fraud. Their relationship is tense. Last year, Abdullah said President Ghani isn't fit to hold office. Afghanistan will choose a new president in 2019. For the PBS NewsHour, I'm PJ Tobia.
And with me now is Abdullah Abdullah. He is the chief executive of Afghanistan. He's an eye doctor who's been a leading political figure in Afghan politics for decades. He served as that country's foreign minister from 2001 to 2006, and he ran for president in 2009 and 2014. Mr. Abdullah, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
For being here. How secure right now is life for ordinary Afghan citizens?
Life for millions of Afghans in parts of the country, in major parts of the country, are secure. But at the same time, the nature of the terrorist activities are such that they are hitting ordinary citizens in mosques, in meeting places, in bazaars, in markets. So that's the nature of terrorist activities.
I asked you because some of the analyses we read describe the elite of Afghanistan as being able to afford private security, whereas most Afghanistan citizens, of course, cannot, and they are the ones who are subject to these terrorist attacks.
Yes, and unfortunately, it will not be possible to provide personal security for each citizen in the brutal tactics that Taliban and other terrorist groups are using, which is indiscriminate attacks on civilians, and mainly through suicidal attacks, car bombs. These are difficult to prevent, though when you have incidents from one side, then we have other cases where these things have been prevented and have been discovered and people have been arrested. But out of too many, then one succeeds and then inflict casualties on civilians.
President Trump, as we know, has announced that, has decided that their U.S. troops will stay in your country longer than had been the previous plan. How long will they need to stay there? How long will you need U.S. military help?
First of all, at this stage, if you compare it with a few years ago, when there were over 120,000 U.S. troops in Afghanistan, now it's around 1/10 of that. At the same time, the announcement of the policy which has a few elements. And the main element is that it is condition-based, not time-bound, and more clarity as far as the nature of the problem, including the presence of sanctuaries in Pakistan, which has been identified as the main problem, which has to be dealt with in its own way. And then you have the people of Afghanistan and our forces, which have taken most of the responsibility of the fighting on their shoulders. To say how long, it's difficult, but I am sure that it is doable. We have a willing partner in the people of Afghanistan.
What will it take to get it done? What will it take to defeat the Taliban?
The idea in the roadmap ahead of us would be to exercise and to implement more pressure on Taliban, which hopefully it will lead to a situation where elements of Taliban will find it that it's not possible to win a war through their own tactics, but see other chances through negotiations. And those who are willing to fight until they die, they will be limited forces.
Is there a political strategy on the part of your government to go along with the military strategy?
Yes. The peace process, or the High Peace Council, which has been established in order to keep the door open for negotiations, for talks, and to make outreaches to the elements of Taliban which might be willing to talk. That is part of the policy that we are pursuing. But there was a situation that Taliban were hoping that with the withdrawal of the American troops, they might come back full force. That situation has come to an end today, and we hope that that will lead to another conditions where elements of Taliban will join the peace process.
Mr. Abdullah, one of the things President Trump has talked openly about is inviting India to get involved in the development of Afghanistan. Is that something you welcome?
We do. India played a constructive role, a supportive role, has played in the past 15 years. But as part of the South Asia policy, there is a new energy, and India has helped Afghanistan with billions of dollars of assistances.
But sensitive because of the relationship with Pakistan, no?
We tried with Pakistan also to establish good relations, but unfortunately the main obstacle there has been the presence of the sanctuaries for Taliban and other terrorist groups there. That we have not been able to address it through our past engagements.
As we have reported, reminded our viewers, it was just a year ago that you criticized Mr. Ghani, the leader of your country, as being unfit for office. Are you still planning to run on the same ticket with Mr. Ghani in 2019 in the next elections, or do you plan to run yourself for president?
Last time I didn't run on the same ticket with President Ghani, and as far as 2019 is concerned, I think because of the priorities of the people, because of the challenges that our people are faced with, it's important for myself, for President Ghani, to focus on the priorities of the people at this stage, and then when the time comes, decide who will going to run, who will not going to run.
So do you still hold the view that he's unfit?
We are working together in the same government. He's the president of the country, I'm chief executive. We both have responsibilities, and we have to carry out our responsibilities in the best way possible.
And you're not ruling it out?
Running for
president yourself?
I think it's too early to talk about it. I'm sure that it will be breaking news should I go a little bit further than that.
Abdullah Abdullah, who is the chief executive of Afghanistan, thank you very much.
You're welcome.